The Illini had a very big emotional victory on Saturday. I was fearing a week ago today that, maybe I'm going to have to start focusing on basketball, but luckily that turned around. And the Cubs won today. They advanced from the wild card series. So, Mark, I'm flying pretty high right now.
And 10 years ago, I would have been all over that Cubs game and every other Major League Baseball game, every pitch, everything. I used to have the extra innings package and watched everything all the time. And I have no idea what's going on now. But congratulations to your Cubs. Who did they now play?
They're going to be playing Milwaukee for the first time ever in the playoffs. So that should be fun because that's a rivalry that I don't know if the rest of the country realizes.
Yeah.
It's as rowdy as it is. But, now that I think about it, it's rivalry weekend for me at this point between my baseball side and the Illini playing for the Cannon Trophy against Purdue.
All right, folks, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Let you know that I will be here all night if you want me to be here all night. But we're talking Illinois football with Sonny, and I saw Michael Hogue wandering around there in the chat, and I was thinking that we would finish off by bringing Michael on here because I thought, as a big Purdue fan, that he would want to ask you maybe a question. So, Michael, if you're out there, not for the entire discussion, but maybe a last comment or question for Sonny about Illinois and Purdue, because Michael's on here every night asking me about Illinois and Purdue and how they match up and all this business. And I'm like, I haven't seen Purdue play one play this season, Michael. So anyway, the big turnaround against, I did watch every play of the USC game, and it was pretty, I was locked in to watch a great game against Indiana. I was here all off season saying, this is the under the radar game in the Big Ten. This is like the one to watch. And we know what happened there. So we don't need to dig into that too much unless it kind of leaks into the USC analysis. But it's like people don't watch sports. I won't even put college football out there, just sports. That the two things that I saw in the chat all week were Illinois is going to get crushed and all these ridiculous scores about how they're going to get killed and that Iowa's going to get killed because Indiana is just like the 85 Bears suddenly and they're just going to crush Iowa. And these games are going to be no contest. Now, if you take Indiana, Illinois, USC, Iowa, maybe a couple other teams in the Big Ten, and you mix them up, I don't know who's going to win these games. And it was a great game against USC. And what I got from it was a guy like Mekhi Lemons making ridiculous plays in the fourth quarter to keep them in the game. But Illinois is kind of really churning the slow grind of the run game and the offensive line, and their physicality started to take hold in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it. It all started, we can talk about 2 weeks ago with that Indiana game. Now, of course, everyone's going to remember that final score, 63-10. I mean, if these two teams play 10 times, the score is not going to be 63-10 again. It's just one of those where it was perfect circumstances for Indiana and, not ideal circumstances for Illinois. I'm not making excuses. Clearly, Indiana's the better football team. I'm making that part clear. But context also matters. Indiana's a fantastic and arguably the best front-running team in college football. Curt Cignetti's kind of made this their identity, that when they get ahead and when they're up 2 touchdowns, they don't let off the pedal at all. And then by the second half, Illinois had lost 6 of their top 7 defensive backs. And, a conversation I had with a lot of Illini fans was, look, there's a lot of teams in the top 15 in the country that if they faced off against Indiana at night in Bloomington, and then you said that they couldn't play with 6 of their top 7 defensive backs, they would lose that game too. But I think you put it perfectly. A lot of people put a lot of weight into that game and kind of carried it over. Illinois was a touchdown underdog against USC. And Mark, I think you and I were both kind of similar when it comes to our previews for Illinois. I think I ultimately had them at 9 wins. You had them at 8 wins. But both of us were like, 10, 11 wins, college football playoff, that might be a little bit of a stretch. For me, this USC team that we just played, I think is a top 20 team. When Illinois went to play Indiana, they were ranked number 9. Do I think they're the 9th best team in the country? No. Do I think they're roughly right around a top 20 team like USC was? Or I think they were ranked 21 or something last Saturday. Yeah, I think they basically played another top 20 team. And they came out victorious. And I think, for the rest of the season, if you take a look at their schedule, They have Purdue this week, of course, which a lot of people are calling a trap game, and we can talk about that in a second if you think that might be important. But after this, we have Ohio State the following week, and then we have a bye week, but then we travel to Washington, and Washington usually never loses at home unless they're playing the national champions, as they did last week. But then after that, Mark, you take a look at that schedule, and all of a sudden, it gets a little bit easier now. A team that most of the country, and I can kind of understand, gave up on after that debacle on national television on a Saturday night. Low key, they can still win 10 games, 9 games, but at that point, everyone's already stopped paying attention.
Yeah, and that was something that I stated was going to happen, that there was going to be an unfair conclusion for the loser of this game, that the perception was going to be, well, they're a pretender because we don't believe in Illinois football or Indiana football on a regular basis. If that's Oregon or Ohio State, you lose a game, okay, they'll be back, they're fine. But perception is fortunately not the logistics, and fortunately and hopefully is not in the eyes of the college football playoff committee, although 63-10, that was not 30-27.
Yeah. I mean, Illinois essentially now has to cheer on Duke for the rest of the year. We're going to have to hope that Indiana beats Penn State and Oregon, because ultimately, again, if you lose to Indiana and Ohio State on your schedule and somehow you're able to squeak by Washington, playing at Washington, and you end up with just 2 losses, and your only 2 losses being Indiana and Ohio State, who at that point might be playing for the Big Ten championship, maybe you're still talking about a chance of squeezing in at the end. But it is what it is. Like I knew I was very hyped up for that game against Indiana. I think I came on with you, and I talked about like the weight of that game for both programs, because both programs were kind of battling for the top spot in the second tier when it comes to the Big Ten Conference. And the way it just went out, like, Illinois, frankly, simply got embarrassed. And so it's one of those where they're going to have to fight perception. But you know what? Even though a lot of the fan base gave up, a lot of the national media, national fans kind of forgotten about Illinois, Brett Bielema on the bus ride home said that he started watching film immediately on the bus ride back to Bloomington. And you can tell that team that came out 1 week later against USC was a completely different team than the one that's quite honestly been playing the previous 4 weeks. I don't know if you recall me telling you this, but the offensive line has had struggles for the last 2 seasons coming out of the gate. The first 4, 5, 6 games, people have been wondering like what needs to be fixed. Brett eventually makes some adjustments, and then from that point on, they become an above average offensive line. A lot of people thought, hey, USC leads the country in sacks coming into this game against Illinois. We saw how Indiana just obliterated that offensive line. And a lot of people thought that those NFL players on USC's defensive line were going to feast. They did nothing. I believe they got 1 sack on Luke Altmaier the entire game. And, it's, again, the offensive line just made a different shift, whatever it is. I just hope they can keep that going through Purdue. And then we've got, Ohio State after that. And, it's just, we'll see. It's one of those where it's nice because, as I said before, a week ago, I thought maybe it's time to focus my attention on basketball. But, Mark, I still think this team is really good. They're not top 10 good, but they absolutely are. And, I'm watching their all 22s at night. They're a top 20-ish team good. And you know what? As an Illini fan, I'll take that right now.
And so the common theory or analysis here would be looking at the schedule. This is the sandwich game. It's between USC and Ohio State. However, Brett Bielema should be able to get everyone's attention by saying, well, we played these guys last year. And remember, we came with like one play like 18 times of losing this game, 50-49 against what was the worst team in the Power 5.
They gave up 46 points in the second half. I wish I was making that up. I did my preview episode this morning when I went over that game last year, and 46 points. It was 24-3 at halftime.
I'm going to get off here and I'm going to watch the little 15-minute highlight package just to recall what in the world happened, because that game was completely off my radar. But it was one of those like really late in the game. I was like, "What's going on?"
Right.
And I had to flip to it, kind of deal. So knowing what you know about Purdue, I'm sure you've started to work on them, prep them a little bit. in terms of what they're doing better. Of course, Barry Odom's had success elsewhere, did a fine job at UNLV. They're much improved. Took a USC team where, they threatened them, but if you really look deep into that game, they had their chances to be really close and threaten USC. And they're playing decent football if they're not lining up against, let's say, Notre Dame. But they're an improved football team. Obviously, Illinois should win this game. I don't know what the spread is. I would guess it's around 2 touchdowns.
It's 9.5.
9.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so just your thoughts about what Purdue's path could be and what are Illinois' concerns.
Well, for me, I just want to see what the offensive line looks like in that first and second quarter. If it looks like what it's looked like in the first 4 weeks, then you know what? This should be another game. It's going to be an offensive shootout. If Illinois' offensive line is fixed, then quite simply, when it comes to Illinois and Purdue, they go back and forth on who can be the better team. Right now, I think Illinois is clearly the better football team between the two. So if they play their game in the sense of taking the ball away from the Boilermakers and, making sacks and interceptions and just simply not making mistakes, don't fumble at the goal line and much less don't do it twice and giving, Purdue opportunities to get the ball back and score. It's different. Like Barry Odom, I think, is clearly a better coach than Ryan Walters, but how much influence does Ryan Walters might still have? Like I had a conversation on the phone or on my stream about this. I'm curious on your thoughts. Do you think Barry Odom, who coached Ryan Walters at Missouri, do you think that Barry can still make a phone call to Ryan saying, hey, what did you do against Illinois last year? Or do you think because Ryan was let go from Purdue that he's done with it? Like he wouldn't even take the call?
Well, not knowing exactly, it's one thing to work for somebody. It's another thing to, some of these coaches form lifelong bonds and are like brothers. So I don't know what the status was there. Yeah, that's anybody's guess that doesn't know the inner workings of those relationships.
Yeah. But it's simply one of those that I think Illinois is a better team. And usually if the better team can just limit their mistakes and the halftime adjustment, because Purdue's done something. It's one of those, I'll kind of recap or review the rivalry for the last 4 years. A lot of people are saying this is a trap game. I released an episode yesterday saying that I don't think this can be a trap game because trap games, you have to overlook your opponent because you don't take them seriously. Purdue has beaten Brett Bielema 3 out of 4 times since Brett Bielema has taken the job at Illinois. This is not a team that we are routinely beating, despite the fact that for the better part of those 4 years, Illinois has been the better football team. So for me, Brett knows better than anybody about the debacle that happened against Indiana. And if there's any shot of being considered, going back to the college football player conversation, you're not only going to have to go 10-2, but you're going to have a lot of 63-10 scores in your favor to just try to have the committee recognize you a little bit better. And so in my opinion, that's kind of, where we're at. I don't think Brett would let his staff overlook Purdue in hopes to beating Ohio State. Now we'll deal with Ohio State next week. Let's try to have a multiple touchdown win against the Boilermakers.
Sonny Verma breaking down Illinois football. The Illini take on Purdue before a treacherous stretch in the Big Ten, including Ohio State and Washington. And we'll see if the Illini can continue the momentum they built against USC. You can catch Sonny's work on Locked On Illinois and also Talking Illini on 3. And if you love the Chicago Bears, Sonny's got you covered there as well. Sonny, always good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Mark, I always appreciate the invitation.